My dear friends, tonight I want to begin with a question that deserves your complete attention. It is a question that reaches beneath appearances and exposes the hidden foundation of every experience you have. Your answer to it is shaping your life at this very moment. So ask yourself honestly, without pretending or trying to impress anyone, who do you truly believe yourself to be? I am not asking about the person you dream of becoming years from now. I am not asking about the image you show to family, friends, or strangers. I am asking about the identity you quietly accept in the privacy of your own mind. When the world becomes silent and you are left alone with your thoughts, what role have you assigned yourself? What story are you unconsciously repeating day after day? Most people would discover an uncomfortable truth. Deep inside, they have accepted the idea that life is happening to them instead of through them. They see themselves as victims of circumstances, prisoners of past mistakes, or people whose future depends on luck, other people, or favorable conditions. They believe that events control them rather than recognizing the power they already possess. But that belief is the greatest illusion anyone can carry. You are not a powerless observer drifting wherever life decides to take you. You are the creative force behind your own experience. The reality you live each day is constantly being influenced by the assumptions you accept as true. Long before an event appears in the outer world, it has already been entertained, accepted, and nourished within consciousness. This idea sounds almost too simple. In fact, many intelligent people reject it immediately because the mind often mistakes simplicity for weakness. We have been trained to believe that meaningful change must involve complicated methods, endless strategies, and difficult formulas. Yet, some of the greatest truths are astonishingly simple. One genuine shift in your inner identity can begin changing every area of your life. It is not because magic is involved, but because every action, decision, and opportunity naturally follows the state of consciousness you consistently occupy. Imagine someone who secretly believes they always fail. Even when opportunities appear, they hesitate, they doubt themselves, they expect disappointment before success has a chance to unfold. Their assumptions quietly influence every decision they make. Now imagine another person who naturally expects success. They approach the same opportunities with confidence, persistence, and calm certainty. Their external actions differ because their internal identity is different. Years ago, a young man came to me carrying what seemed like an impossible burden. He had recently lost his job, his relationship had fallen apart, and financial pressure surrounded him from every direction. As he sat across from me, he looked completely defeated. His shoulders were heavy, his eyes reflected exhaustion, and his words revealed something far deeper than temporary hardship. He said, "Nothing ever works out for me. I'm simply unlucky." Those few words explained more about his situation than any list of circumstances ever could. I gently stopped him and told him that his greatest problem was not unemployment, heartbreak, or financial stress. His greatest problem was the identity he had accepted. Every time he declared himself unlucky, he strengthened the very state that continued producing experiences matching that belief. He expected practical advice about finding another job or fixing his immediate problems. Instead, I invited him to examine the assumptions living inside his own consciousness. An assumption is not blind optimism. It is not pretending everything is perfect while secretly expecting failure. It is not repeating positive statements that never reach your heart. An assumption is something much deeper. It is the quiet acceptance that something is already true even before the physical world reflects it. When you truly accept a new identity, your thoughts begin changing naturally. Your reactions become different. Your choices improve without force because they are flowing from a different version of yourself. His confidence grew, and because his confidence changed, his actions changed as well. Those new actions produced new results until his entire situation looked completely different from where he had started. Was it luck? Was it coincidence? From the outside, perhaps some people would think so. But those who understand the power of assumption recognize something deeper. Every lasting transformation begins within consciousness before it becomes visible in the physical world. One final point deserves your attention. When I speak about feeling, I am not referring to dramatic emotion or forced excitement. Excitement comes and goes. Fear comes and goes. Temporary emotions cannot sustain lasting change. The feeling that transforms reality is quiet conviction. It is the peaceful certainty you already have about your own name. You never wake each morning wondering whether your name still belongs to you. You simply know it. That certainty requires no effort because it has become part of your identity. Your desired life must eventually carry that same quality of natural acceptance. Once your new assumption feels as familiar as your own name, your world begins reflecting it with surprising consistency. Everything changes the moment you stop hoping to become someone new and begin accepting that you already are. The certainty you have about your own identity requires no effort. You never wake up needing proof of your name or convincing yourself that it belongs to you. You simply know it. That effortless confidence is the same inner certainty you must develop about the life you wish to experience. Do not rely on bursts of excitement, temporary hope, or forced optimism. Instead, cultivate a calm and natural conviction that your desired reality is already yours. When that assumption feels ordinary instead of distant, it begins shaping your world from within. Let me illustrate this with another example. A woman once came to me carrying years of heartbreak. She had not spoken to her son in 5 years after a painful disagreement had driven them apart. During that time, she had exhausted every logical solution imaginable. She wrote heartfelt letters, made phone calls, reached out through relatives, and searched endlessly for a way to repair the relationship. Nothing changed. Eventually, she accepted the painful belief that the distance between them would last forever. I encouraged her to stop trying to force a solution in the outer world and instead transform the story she carried within. Each night before falling asleep, she imagined hearing her son's loving voice on the telephone. She experienced the joy of reconciliation so vividly that she felt once again like a mother deeply connected to her child. She remained faithful to that inner experience, and after only a few weeks, her son unexpectedly called. He confessed that he had been dreaming about her repeatedly, waking each morning with an overwhelming desire to reconnect until he could no longer ignore it. Her outer world changed only after her inner assumption had changed. Many people immediately ask how private thoughts could possibly influence another person's actions. The answer lies in understanding that consciousness is not as separate as we often imagine. The assumptions you consistently hold influence the way you perceive others, the energy you bring into every interaction, and the opportunities you recognize. When you genuinely believe you are respected, people often respond differently because your behavior naturally reflects confidence rather than insecurity. When you assume opportunities exist, your attention becomes tuned to possibilities that fear would normally overlook. When you identify as healthy, capable, or successful, your decisions, habits, and responses gradually align with that identity. Whether someone views this as a spiritual principle or a psychological one, the result remains the same. Your dominant assumptions quietly shape the reality you experience every day. The same principle appeared in the life of a businessman who wanted to dramatically increase his income. Instead of focusing on financial problems, I asked him to imagine the life he would already be living if his goal had been achieved. He pictured driving the car he desired, walking through a better home, enjoying meaningful vacations with his family, and handling larger business opportunities with complete confidence. Most importantly, he practiced feeling that this life was completely normal rather than extraordinary. Within months, his income grew beyond his original expectations because his thinking, actions, and decisions had become consistent with his new identity. This reveals one of the greatest secrets of assumption. Consistency matters more than intensity. You cannot claim abundance in the morning while rehearsing scarcity all afternoon. You cannot embrace confidence one moment and surrender to self-doubt the next. A woman I once knew faithfully imagined herself in a loving relationship every morning, yet every afternoon she convinced herself that lasting love was impossible whenever she saw happy couples together. Her imagination was building one future while her daily assumptions were creating another. Lasting transformation begins only when your inner story remains steady, allowing your mind, emotions, and actions to move in the same direction. Do you notice what was happening? She was creating the very thing she wanted in one moment, then quietly undoing it in the next. Every morning she imagined herself deeply loved, yet throughout the day she kept returning to thoughts of rejection and loneliness. Her nightly imagination was constantly being erased by the story she continued telling herself after sunrise. It was like trying to fill a bucket that had holes in the bottom. No matter how much she poured into it, nothing stayed. The turning point came when she stopped living in the hope of love and began living from the certainty of it. Instead of thinking about the relationship she wished would arrive someday, she started thinking as the woman who was already loved. Whenever fear or doubt appeared, she no longer fought those thoughts. She simply asked herself, if I were already in the relationship I desire, how would I think? How would I respond to this moment? Then she allowed herself to feel the answer instead of forcing it with words. She carried herself with the quiet confidence of someone who already belonged to love. She wore that identity throughout the day until it became completely natural. Within only a couple of months, she met a man who reflected everything she had consistently accepted within herself. And today, they continue to share a happy life together. That experience reveals one of the most powerful truths I have ever learned. The version of yourself you long to become already exists. In the limitless field of consciousness, every possible version of your life is already present. There is a version of you enjoying financial freedom, another overflowing with health and vitality, another surrounded by genuine love, and another fulfilling a purpose that inspires countless people. Your responsibility is not to manufacture those realities from nothing. They already exist as possibilities. Your only task is to step into the feeling of already being that person. Think of consciousness as an endless wardrobe filled with countless identities. Every identity represents a different state of mind and a different experience of life. Right now, you are wearing one of those identities without even realizing it. It is the collection of beliefs and assumptions you have accepted about yourself over the years. If you want a different life, you do not have to build an entirely new person from the ground up. You simply choose another identity and begin living from it. Put on the mindset of the person you want to become. Then stop treating it like a temporary costume. Wear it until it feels as natural as your own skin. The successful version of you is not waiting somewhere in the future. The abundant version already exists. The confident version already exists. When you calmly accept that identity instead of desperately chasing it, your perspective changes. You notice different opportunities, make different choices, respond differently to challenges, and naturally attract experiences that match your new assumptions. If you want to practice this, begin by becoming crystal clear about what you truly desire. Replace vague wishes with something specific and meaningful. Instead of saying you want success, define exactly what success looks like. Imagine a scene that could only happen if your goal had already become reality. Picture someone congratulating you, reviewing exciting financial results, celebrating a major achievement, or hearing wonderful news from a trusted professional. Experience that scene from your own eyes instead of watching it like a movie. Hear the voices, notice the surroundings, and allow every detail to feel real. Most importantly, capture the emotion you would naturally experience if that moment were happening right now. It may be gratitude, peace, relief, confidence, or quiet satisfaction. Hold on to that feeling because it is the bridge between imagination and experience. Carry that emotional state with you long after the visualization ends. Whenever your desire comes to mind, resist the urge to overanalyze, worry, or figure everything out. Simply return to the feeling of already living the fulfilled reality. Continue doing this until it no longer feels like practice but becomes your normal way of thinking. I experienced this principle personally when I felt called to share these teachings with larger audiences. At first, I spoke to only a handful of people in small rooms, and I appreciated every opportunity. Yet within me was an unwavering certainty that these ideas were meant to reach far more lives. Night after night, I imagined standing before large audiences. I could almost hear the applause, sense the energy filling the room, and feel the deep fulfillment of knowing I was doing the work I had been created to do. I never treated those scenes like impossible dreams. I accepted them as part of my identity long before they appeared physically. Eventually, invitations arrived from places I had never expected. Larger venues opened their doors, publishers showed interest, and opportunities continued expanding until I was speaking to hundreds and then thousands. What surprised me most was not that it happened, but how natural it felt when it did. I had already become that person inwardly before the world reflected it outwardly. Of course, doubt will try to interrupt your progress because every person encounters it. The difference is not whether doubt appears, but whether you allow it to replace the assumption you have chosen to live by. When doubt appears, many people mistake it for wisdom. They assume it is protecting them from disappointment, warning them not to dream too big. But doubt is not a fact. It is simply another assumption wearing the mask of logic. It has no greater claim to truth than confidence or possibility. If your mind can assume that failure is inevitable, it is equally capable of assuming success. If it can convince you that you are unworthy, it can just as easily accept that you deserve every good thing you seek. The only meaningful question is not which assumption feels familiar, but which one serves the life you truly want to live. I once knew someone who received a frightening medical diagnosis. Every conversation around him carried the quiet expectation that his condition would worsen. Yet instead of surrendering to those predictions, he made a different choice. Whenever fear surfaced, he calmly reminded himself, I can identify with illness or I can identify with health. Today, I choose health. Again and again, he returned to the feeling of strength, energy, and well-being until it became more natural than fear itself. Eventually, his recovery surprised everyone around him. Many called it a miracle, but from the perspective of Neville mindset, it was the result of consistently inhabiting a new assumption. The moment you truly change the way you see yourself, your entire experience begins changing with you. Relationships shift, unexpected opportunities appear, and circumstances that once seemed fixed begin rearranging themselves. Your inner world is the source, and the outer world faithfully reflects whatever state you consistently occupy. People often ask how long this process takes, hoping for a definite timeline. The honest answer is that it unfolds as soon as your new assumption feels natural. Some changes happen quickly because the mind accepts the new identity almost immediately. Others require patience and repeated practice until the desired state no longer feels unfamiliar. The greatest mistake is watching the calendar and deciding the process has failed because results have not appeared by a certain date. The law never stops working. It is always expressing the assumptions you are consistently entertaining. The only question is whether you have remained faithful to your chosen state long enough for your outer circumstances to reflect it. Instead of measuring progress by time, continue living from the feeling that your desire has already become reality. This is what it means to live from the end. Most people spend their lives reaching toward their dreams, believing success exists